guys, and welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to take a look at the complete Not For Resale set for the original Game Boy, and since it's a relatively small set compared to the others, we will also take a look at the majority of the Game Boy Color Not For Resale copies, and mentioning a few that aren't here as well. For those of you not aware, what makes these games special is something you'll notice as you look closer. The white text box with red font that says Not For Resale. Many of you probably remember seeing video game kiosks in game stores or major retailers, and that's the story behind these sets as well. A small amount of copies that were produced for those demo units were specifically labeled for kiosk use, although sometimes these were never applied, or it's actually very easy to feel and see the remnants after somebody tried to clean it. When it was time for these demos to get pulled out of their kiosk for the next game, copies were supposed to either get shipped back or discarded, and of course were never meant to be in the hands of the consumer. A lot of people look at copies like these and wonder, why bother? What's the difference? Well, what makes these sets special and significant are a couple of things. Firstly, they hold historical significance. We know for certain that these are some of the earliest copies of the game, since the timing of when these were in kiosks were often before and leading up to a game's launch. And we know that we are specifically looking at copies that were all, more than likely, used in a kiosk unit and played a major role of helping the game sell successfully too. Secondly, possibly hundreds if not thousands of people have played and yearned for these specific games, as they build up excitement for their own copy. Lastly, of course, these were never meant for consumers to have them, making them extra unique and inherently very rare and obscure. And from a collectability standpoint, since they are pretty small finite sets, since it's not an overwhelming sea of several hundred or thousands of games, these can be so unusual to see that it really would be normal for a lifelong gamer or collector to never come across one of these copies if they weren't already looking for it specifically. It took me 2 years of routinely checking online to find and complete the N64 and Super Nintendo sets, and this one was basically the same. I only think it wasn't harder because it's something that's flying relatively underneath the radar without a ton of interest, even more so than the other sets. Although these seem to be growing, while some prices can get up there, they're often way below what you might expect for a particular cartridge that may only pop up a few times in an entire year, or even crazier, less than once a year. I would argue that a couple factors have made the Game Boy games even more rare and obscure than the SNES or N64 sets, due to the Game Boy kiosk not being as common. Also, plain and simple reasons like the small size of the cartridges, along with just how the games even compare technologically to your home console at the time and how games look nowadays. So it's the type of item that could be easily disregarded and just thrown away by people that figured there was no use or significance for it anymore. But the simple fact is that these games capture history and excitement of the launch while celebrating these title spotlights that they once had, along with the console itself. So with all that being said, in no particular order, let's take a look at the rarity and what we can find out on current value of these games, and for reference we'll discuss prices that I remember seeing as well as prices I've paid, or at least from what I can remember. I know some gamers or collectors can be really stingy or weird about talking about prices that they've paid for a game as if it's like comparable to them handing over your social security number or a blank check, when it really doesn't matter at all. It just adds to what is supposed to be an interesting and thorough conversation. Like seriously, who cares? And also it helps to have my price points as data because these do not sell very often. The list I always refer to was in an article on Nintendo Age, and that's the only list I've ever seen. It included all the games I have here, except for one. The Killer Instinct GB NFR is something I've only seen twice in over a 3-year span on eBay, compared to the most rare and certainly most expensive games for other libraries that always seem to have at least 2 to 5 or more copies online at a single time, selling once a week versus less than once a year. We are in a completely different league of genuine rarity here. Alright, Donkey Kong Land. Currently there are no completed or current listings online for this one right now, but I've seen it sell for just around $35 to $50 on average. I was surprised to not see this available at all because I feel like there's at least one copy of it online every so often. I actually had 2 of these at one point, since one was going unnoticed for a low price around $20 in an auction. It was the first one I got around 5 years ago. Donkey Kong Land 2, another game that I could not find online currently or one that's recently ended. I have definitely seen this game listed a few times before, but I would say maybe half or so as often as Donkey Kong Land 1. And even still, I've seen it sell for around $40 to $50 range, a few times less than that, and I got mine for around $40 5 years ago. Tetris Attack. This is one that I've seen a few times as well, but not as often as Donkey Kong Land. For rarity comparison, there are 5 Super Nintendo NFR Tetris Attacks right now, but 0 of the Game Boy currently or recently ended. And I believe I got this one in an auction for like $12 or $13, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Kirby's Dream Land 2, yet again, another game that's not currently on eBay or recently. Sometimes seeing certain games early on in your search can distort how rare you believe they are, and this is one of them. I feel like I've seen this game online maybe 3 times or so when I was looking, and I got mine for around $60, but I've seen it listed and sell for around $150 before, and I guess that makes sense because I really haven't seen it much at all, and I got this one around 3 or 4 years ago. Wario Land 2, as opposed to Wario Land 3 Game Boy Color NFR, which always seems to have a few copies online, this one is not available currently or listed recently, and I've seen it a handful of times as well. It can be hard to vividly remember with there being a few Wario NFRs, but I do remember this one's asking price always being higher, like $70 or so. In fact, on pricecharting.com, this is the only NFR on their site, and it did sell once this year for $70. Pretty sure I got it for around $40, and I'm not sure why, that's just the price area a couple of these seem to float around. Alright, Killer Instinct Game Boy NFR is rare as crap. There's a reason why it was missing from that Nintendo Age article, and you know something super obscure when you can't even find an image of it with a search engine. You can't even Google a picture of this thing. The story behind this one is kind of funny because maybe 3 years ago I saw it for the first time when I was trying to search online to chip away at the Game Boy Not For Resale set, and it was listed for $65 or best offer. As opposed to simply committing to buy it now, I tried to offer $55, and after a couple days I reached out and the buyer said it actually just got sold and the listing ended. Talk about regret trying to save $10. Of course this meant I was looking in particular for this one on and off on the app for years, man. Not every second or every day like a lunatic, but I was typing it into eBay a lot, like every day, every other day sometimes, and I'd come back every week or two. Point is, I looked regularly, and it was over 2 years until I saw this one surface again for the price of $80, and I said, you know what? Might as well scoop this one up now, because you never know when you'll see it again. I haven't seen it since, so this shit right here, who knows how many of them are out there, but if you have a game like this that shows up once every couple years on a site like eBay, you know there can't be too many of them. Wario Blast NFR is one that I've seen a few online at a time, but this is when I was still focusing on the N64 and SNES NFRs, so I ignored it, and I was fortunate to pick this one up around $30 like 2 or 3 years ago, because once again, we have our 7th game in a row that is not listed currently or recently. I feel like whenever I would see it, the asking price was never too crazy, always between $30 to $60, something like that. Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball is another rare one that I would only see once in a while. It definitely stood out to me when I saw it for the first time, after looking at these for almost a year, but I've seen a few come and go since. This is the 8th game in a row that is not currently listed, but one did just sell recently for $39.99, and ironically with the last one I ended up getting to complete the set maybe half a year ago for $26. The next one is a little bonus, as we've seen games before that only have a sticker on the back of the game. It's not part of the front label NFR set, although it is another cool little NFR to have in the collection, and as I was actually looking into this, I got my mind completely rocked because I had totally forgotten about another front label NFR that I actually still need to complete this set, Kirby's Block Ball. While looking at Kirby NFR completed listings on eBay, I happened to stumble upon this for just $15, and that kills me on the inside because I definitely wish I acted on this back on April 9th, and I would have paid at least triple that. This is absolutely the lowest price I've seen for it, and what better example can you see of the prices not lining up with the rarity, as these are not even a blip on the radar for so many people. Seeing this, it's bringing back some memories I want to say. I specifically saw one of these on eBay a long time ago, and someone was asking for over $100 for at least a month, and I never saw it sell. So if anybody happens to see one of these and would like to help me complete the set, please let me know and I will graciously buy it from you or check the listing itself and give you a finder's fee of $20 since I value your time so much, along with giving you a shout out in the video once this set is truly complete. I'm pretty sure I got a really decent deal on this, like $25 or $30 when I saw one at the same time listed for $80 just a couple years ago. And just to make things a perfect Game Boy Not For Resale rarity sweep, this is also not available currently online, meaning at the time of this video, literally none of these are available online at all right now, which is honestly shocking to me because I swear I used to see these somewhat regularly while trying to complete the N64 and SNES sets, but perhaps it's going through its own little supply versus demand struggle storm right now. I mean, I would say anyway, how do you have a game from a set end for $15 not that long ago and then have none available on the site all at the same time? That's ridiculous. As promised, let's take a look at the nearly complete Game Boy Color set as well. I actually never treated these Game Boy sets as something that I felt like I was trying to complete, not actively checking off the list like I was for the Super Nintendo or N64. I really was just picking up copies if I knew I didn't have them and if the prices seemed reasonable by comparison. Then all of a sudden, after years of on and off activity, you realize you're almost at the finish line. So first we have Zelda Oracle of Seasons, and I believe I got this a couple years ago for around $40 or $50, something like that, and right now its asking price is $100 online with a completed listing already of $115, and I believe I've seen it for $50 to $70 in the past as well. Might as well mention now, of course I do not have the sister game Zelda Oracle of Ages, and I've seen it before with similar pricing, I just never actually committed to getting it due to timing and sometimes the price, you know. Next we have Tetris DX, and I want to say I got this one for around $15 to $20 a couple years ago, and while there aren't any recently completed listings at all, at this very second there is one on eBay right now for $34.99. Donkey Kong Country is one that I used to see pop up every so often just due to how much I was typing in Donkey Kong Country Not For Resale while working on the Super Nintendo set. I feel like I got this one for maybe around $15 or something. I think I've seen this thing pretty often, but it's hard to remember just because with games like this, you may keep seeing the same copy or two just because they aren't selling with no demand until they finally do, and then you don't see it again for months just because that's how low the supply is. Alright, let's talk about these Pokemon cartridges altogether. For those of you not familiar, these are the second generation Pokemon games, and as you might guess, with these belonging to such a popular, important series, and most importantly, on the system where they were the most significant, not a scaled down portable port such as a home console, but definitive entries in the series, these have gotten pretty darn expensive. I just so happened to come across these Pokemon Not For Resales once in a while. They'd pop up when I was searching for N64 Pokemon NFR games, and I got these for around $50 to $60 each, around 3 years ago. Now, as I check currently, these seem to each sell for around or over $200, so these 3 games right here are apparently now worth over $600, which is a total surprise for me. Something that's pretty interesting about the Pokemon NFRs is that since they were always plugged into a Game Boy and just about always powered on, their save batteries are always dead. I'm talking like every single copy. And of course this makes sense because they were being used 7 days a week for 12 hours a day for months, and that's assuming that somebody actually cared to turn them off overnight. Seeing these may have you wondering about the first generation Pokemon games, and while I've never seen a red or blue back label NFR, I've actually seen a yellow one a couple times with an asking price of around $70. Pokemon Yellow was a huge deal, and they definitely demoed that game as it was the fastest selling handheld game in history at the time, with 150,000 pre-orders, 600,000 sales in the first week, and over 1 million sales by its second week. So the idea that a kiosk copy exists definitely makes sense, just harder to find and authenticate due to only having a back sticker, unfortunately. Speaking of back sticker NFRs, next is Mario Deluxe, which is known to have a kiosk copy, and of course that also makes sense. I got this one a few years ago for like $30 or something, and believe it's always been around $30 to $60 asking price when it does pop up. Next one seems to be one of the more common of the entire set, Wario Land 3, where you'll actually see more than one of these, sometimes a few at a time, for $25 to $30 asking price, sometimes a bit more or a bit less. Next one is Mickey Speedway USA, and this one is surprisingly available sometimes as well, where it's typically just like $30 to $40 from what I remember seeing and what's listed right now. Alright, now we'll talk about the few games that are not here. First, Mario Tennis. It's actually not absurdly rare at all. I've seen it a few times, and as I'm writing this, I have one on the way to me right now for $40, with another one listed right now for $79.99, which is a bit much, but I've definitely seen it in the past for $30 to $40 the last few years. Second, Hamtaro Ham Hams Unite. I know for a fact that I've seen this game before, but just due to the obscurity, I can't even find a picture of the actual NFR cartridge. I want to say that I have passed on this before because the asking price was probably around $70, $80 or more, and I just remember thinking Hamtaro is a little too cheesy or cute for me to justify, especially watching at my age when it did come out, but in hindsight, since I haven't seen the game since, maybe I should have grabbed it. Lastly, this is a weird one, and it's definitely an asterisk with the set, and it's not even a game. It was a video loop demo cartridge. I do not even have a picture of this one either, and cannot find one anywhere. I tried searching Game Boy Video Loop Not For Resale, Game Boy Color Video Loop, Game Boy Color Video, nothing. But I know for a fact that I've seen one sell online before because the cartridge looked very unique, where I believe it was like a generic black label on a black cartridge that said Game Boy Color on video or something like that on it. And this was used to demo the processing power of playing the highest quality video that the Game Boy Color could handle, and it definitely sold for over like $300, something ridiculous like that when I did see it. This is one of those games, well, not even a game, a cartridge that happens to be on the side of the fine line for me. Don't get me wrong, if I ever see one for a cheap price, I will get it to help complete the set, and because it kind of looks cool and mysterious, but when it comes down to it, would you rather have $300 tied up in something that isn't even a game, or use that money for a current console? Other games, your bills, rent, mortgage, food, literally anything else. And I'm sure this is a pretty common sense reason why it's so hard to find, because people just thought it was trash. It makes sense why people wouldn't hold on to this. It does make sense why people would hold on to these other games because you can play them, but imagine if you worked in a GameStop now and there was a console with a CD or cartridge in it that demoed like 15 to 20 seconds of a video loop all pixelated over and over, and you were asked if you wanted it. Yeah, I'd want it to smash with a hammer. I would have no idea that it was actually important or going to be worth something one day. But as always guys, I hope you had fun with this third in-depth Not For Resale video. Would love to know what you think in the comments below. To show your support, remember to please like and subscribe to assist with my little channel trying to grow and get some traction, and I'll see you guys again very soon with another video. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.